Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are having a fantastic day. Haven't recorded a video in a while, and that's not even mainly to do with the fact that I, you know, haven't been wanting to or whatnot. It's really just the fact that it's been kind of boring with the weather. There's been very few events really going on. It's been a pretty normal pattern. It was very warm, some heat waves for November standards, so nothing really incredible. But it does look now that in the long range, we will be looking at some interesting activity. Now, I've seen videos beginning to pop up on YouTube about how this will be a cold and snowy wintry pattern following the Thanksgiving week. And there's no certainty in that. It does look like there will be an Arctic blast of air coming into some portion of the United States, and there will be an increased chance for a big storm. So that's definitely true. But exactly how this unfolds is still, it's just too far away to show or to tell. And I will be showing you what I do think and what the models are thinking. Notice that the Climate Prediction Center from the National Weather Service, which gives out these kind of these forecasts every day, updates every day. So this is today, and you can see that in the 8 to 14 days, so around that Thanksgiving week, shows below average across much of the West, and there's a pretty good zone of near normal and an above average. So this gives us indication that there could be a baroclinic zone, and storms always love when two air masses of, especially when they're strong air masses of either warm and cold air kind of bumping into each other. Usually storms love that, and they kind of develop in between those. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of that, and notice that they're showing a pretty active weather pattern in terms of precipitation. So everything from their perspective is showing an active pattern. 6 to 10 days outlook, so a little bit earlier, 6 to 10 day outlook. Warmer for a lot of the country, and this is still where we will have kind of a calmer weather pattern, not much going on. However, notice across certain regions of the country there could definitely be above average, especially towards the south. I'm not so confident that it will be so much wetter towards the north or south as broad as they show here, at least in the 6 to 10 day time frame, but we will see. Notice I want to show you the GFS and a few of its runs. So it's been showing a snowy event, a snowy kind of system potentially for a few days now in the long range, right? So notice as of right now, we do have several disturbances, one across the south bringing heavy rain towards the southern United States, system that is pretty much stalled off California. Notice that on Thursday of this week, we do see a little low pressure eventually escalating into a pretty large one. The cool air behind it is pretty limited, but what it does do is it picks up this moisture that is right now bringing rain across the south, and you can see it develops into a pretty nasty storm. So that is probably the biggest event that is going to be happening in the next, I would say, even 100, 200 hours. So really not that much, and you can see behind it, it leaves a pretty open pattern. Generally very warm, and this is when that 6 to 10 day outlook is formed from the 18th through the 22nd. You can see, yeah, there will be some moisture. I just don't really think it will be abundant by any means. And do note that there will be some sort of a clipper trying to make its way down there. Again, this is far out, so we don't know if this is, going to pan out exactly like that, but what we are realizing is these little dips, right, coming further and further south. And this all kind of comes together. As you can see, I play this. Now, don't exactly pay attention to details, but what we do see is colder air further south during that Thanksgiving weekend after Thanksgiving. And the European really starts introducing snow further south into Wisconsin, Michigan. Now, the AS, partly this is just to do with the fact that, we're getting further and further into winter, and things are going to start occurring further and further south. But if you were to take a look at some of the other GFS model runs, it looks as if it might be also some big storms. So, right, this one wasn't a huge proponent of that, this GFS model run. But if you look at the midnight one, and by the way, some of the previous ones were bigger advocates for that. If you see yesterday at noon, or sorry, yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning, so 24 hours before the model run I just showed you. Again, nothing too incredible prior to that. Again, the biggest event potentially being this system, this clipper that drags a lot of that moisture towards the north and delivers potentially nor'easter right before Thanksgiving week. And then you can see that this model yesterday was really showing quite a bit of snow about around the Great Lakes right around Wednesday, Thursday of Thanksgiving. So these models have been kind of indicating and hinting at this stuff for a while. And if you look at the most recent model runs from the GFS and what it shows in the long range, you can see that for now, pretty warm. We do have that system, scoops up that moisture. So this was the noon model run. You can see this could definitely be something to watch for. Quite a bit of heavy rain and snow for the northeast there. And do note that there's going to be a little bit of cool off. But behind it, again, we see a warming pattern. We have a lot of moisture coming in from the south, but also a cool blast of air. And you can see it develops another system. Now, it's not massive, but it's definitely there. and you can see we're getting into more of the active pattern, one after the other. A decent cold outbreak you can see during Thanksgiving week. The anomalies are pretty cold, so a little bit unusual for an El Nino. You wouldn't expect that, but again, El Ninos are odd years. And do note, again, you can see a snow system on Saturday, Friday, Black Friday, right, the weekend across the Midwest. Again, don't pay too much attention to the fact that it's occurring across certain areas or at what specific time. It's just that it's showing that, and it hasn't done that in a while. And notice that in the long range, it goes further and further out. It doesn't really abate with that cold air. There maybe not be reinforced shots of air, but you can see there's a system digging in here towards the south and west, potentially being a classic kind of panhandle low as it rides up towards the north. So that is interesting. And if you look at the most recent model run that came out literally an hour ago before making this video, again, pretty calm, pretty stable. That biggest threat is there for Thursday and Friday, that little clipper that picks up this moisture from the south and potentially forms into a larger system. So the models have been relatively consistent with that. It seems the heaviest of the rain will stay off just the coast, but there could be a burst of very heavy snow across southern Canada, maybe the extreme northern tip of Maine there into New Brunswick, Nova Scotia areas. And do note that behind that we do see that flux of moisture followed by that cool blast of air, which, well, provides a lot of potential for some snow, lake effects. Again, the models are still all over the place, relatively speaking, with this. And you can see that the GFS model continues to show some snow into the late half of November, pretty far south. So, again, up until 240 hours, it does show this system right here, but it doesn't fully organize it, right? It doesn't make anything big out of it. And I'm specifically honing in on this one right now because I want to show you the European. And the European is another set of models that has, or another model that has been showing some indications of an active pattern. It doesn't go out as far, so that's one thing. But do notice, again, pretty quiet, especially across the central United States. Across the southwest, yeah, rain, snow across the mountains, so that's definitely nice. We do see that system. The European keeps it much further offshore, that massive, potentially, nor'easter. And you can see it, well, it doesn't turn into a massive one. But the European, what it does do, as a result of probably keeping it off the shore, I assume, is introduces a larger system in the central United States. If you recall, the GFS around this time frame is showing nothing really at all. It shows an increase of moisture, but it doesn't turn it into anything compared to the latest version of the European model, which turns this into a potential monster across the Midwest. Really heavy snow for a wide swath, a lot of rain, and you can see these little balls of kind of low pressure, and I call them balls because that's literally what they are. Look at that, that curls up and blasts into the northeast. And another system that you probably noticed was, look at the northwest right there, a massive storm coming in terms of its strength, 979. That would bring tons of snow for Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and whatnot. And do note that kind of potentially probably also turns into some sort of a system into the last week of November. Right around, well, not last week, but again, right around that Thanksgiving week. So that's interesting. If you look at the midnight model run, so the European model run prior to this, pretty consistent up until, again, with that nor'easter system. Interestingly enough, with its most recent model trend, it's kept it further offshore, so we'll see if that's something that'll continue. It does show that pretty large system, but again, it's different, so we'll have to see how the European changes with each model run. It may very well be just something that the European picks up on and doesn't go through with it. So we'll have to wait and see. But what I'm trying to show you is that there's indications of an active pattern. Here's a Canadian model. I don't like this model nearly as much, but I still like to look at it and notice that its midnight model run from yesterday kept that nor'easter off the shore. That's interesting. The European kept it closer, and you could see that it does show that activity more similar to what the European was showing, but that's typical. Usually the Canadian is more of what the European shows. And with its most recent model run here today at noon, what it does do is, well, it keeps that pattern pretty quiet, excluding California, the south, and potentially that northeast. If you recall, the European most recent model run took this system and threw it off the shore, so that has been its trend, and it seems like the Canadian has done that as well, so that's also interesting. And notice we have that really high pressure, strong, I mean, this would be probably some sort of extreme warm-up, brief but extreme warm-up, and that would be followed by a potential massive cool-down, which could lead to some sort of a system. You can see the Canadian showing some snow way farther south, so again, Canadian doing Canadian model things, showing some wild event, but it's definitely possible we get some sort of a storm. Again, doesn't have to necessarily resemble this, and again, this is just the 240 hours. As the GFS shows us, way past that, things remain active with big storms and big systems, so we're gonna have to wait and see. This looks pretty interesting, I can't lie to you guys. Definitely something that's getting me a little bit more excited, as really almost every day of November so far has been so boring, which is why I really haven't recorded a video so far. in November. So that's that. If you look at GEFS, so I just want to show you the temperature anomalies now and what the ensemble is showing. This is many models combined. If you're in the weather community at all, you know what GEFS is. It's pretty good, and you can see, so up until, you know, the short to medium range, pretty warm, dominating much of the United States. A few pockets of cool air, but clearly by Thanksgiving week, we see a sharp nosedive of cold temperature starting across the northwestern United States, southwestern Canada. That will conduce a lot of mountain snow potentially. And look, that spreads further northeast, east and south into the later half of November. And it doesn't look like it will move away quickly. It looks pretty darn stubborn. So that's a GEFS, and it's been showing this for a while. You can see in the morning, in the noon. It varies a little bit, but overall the trend is it gets cooler as we head into November. So that's interesting. EPS, so this is now the European ensemble. It also has a group of models that, you know, forecast the temperatures. And surprisingly, these models usually don't agree. Unsurprisingly, these ensembles usually don't agree terribly. Obviously, in short to medium term, yes, there's a lot more confluence, and in this case, they're all showing warm air, similar to what the GEFS models are showing. But look, in the long range, the EPS start introducing that cold air, similar to what the GEFS were doing. Now, it doesn't maybe take it as far south as some of the GEFS model runs, but it's still there, and honestly, for being this far out, that's a pretty good sign. It's a pretty good signal of agreement. So again, 100 to 200 hours, relatively warm, nothing to worry about. It really starts getting a lot more active into that first part of the Thanksgiving week. So, you know, a lot of people will be traveling and whatnot, so it's not really the best time it shows to get active, but it's definitely something, well, you know, Mother Nature throws curveballs and we'll have to deal with it. GEFS also has an ability of every day at midnight it goes out to 840 hours, and it's pretty much bogus, but I still like showing it because sometimes it's interesting. So notice into December, it kind of gets rid of some of that cool air, right? And again, this changes almost every day as well, but and remains more of a warmer pattern. Whether or not that will be the case, we will have to wait and see. It's almost as if these models always trend towards a warmer pattern in the long range, so that's not really too surprising. And you can see that, yeah, it's been pretty consistent with that warmth. But again, for the medium to short term, the GEFS shows a lot of warmth, potentially some even maybe breaking records, especially if you get that out ahead of that massive storm with the high pressure that drives all that warm air out or up. We do definitely see a definitive cool down. You can see the models are showing that. But again, according to GEFS, it doesn't last along for too long. But that could change with a flip of a switch. So we will have to wait and see and keep things you know, looking out for these type of occurrences. I do want to show you also the CFS. So this is kind of a long range model, but it also goes out to very almost 800 hours. Not the best model, similar to the GEFS long range, right? It's kind of, you just look at more for fun, but you can see it definitely shows an increase of storms with that dip of cool air, and into December it seems to moderate things. But I mean, I don't really see any signs of an extremely warm pattern, extremely warm December. It looks pretty active and actually pretty chilly. So we'll see. Again, this one runs once every 2 days, or twice every day. So again, it's pretty often and obviously pretty inconsistent. So that's that. But again, I am pretty confident between that 200-hour time frame and 400 hours, we're going to have an active set of wintry weather for a good portion of the United States and a lot of cold. Look at this model run at random midnight. Look at those massive storms and those massive troughs bringing snow all the way down to Oklahoma by early December. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Maybe. I would love to see activity. I like it, obviously, unless its impacts are just too big, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, it's not much to go off of, but I just wanted to make a video and show you guys we are expecting a ramp up in activity. So that will basically be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya.